Now you know the definitions of meltdown and tantrum. It's time to look at a side-by-side comparison of the two. Comparing these two types of behaviors will help you better understand what to look for and how to help you in either situation. Join us as we do a side-by-side comparison of meltdowns and tantrums.
Hello and welcome to this edition of my Spectrum Life podcast. My name is Jessica and I'm an autism mom. And with me is my good friend, Kelsey.
Hello, I'm Kelsey and I'm a special education teacher with a master's in behavior. And tonight we're going to be talking about a comparison between meltdowns and tantrums.
Yes, they are those two things are very commonly confused, I think.
They very are.
It's different for they're different, but they can be sort of alike, but you have to know the differences. And we kind of gave some definitions last week, so we're going to get I guess let's go ahead and compare the two so that we can go for it.
Right.
Okay, so the first question we have is who.
Right.
Tantrums apply to all.
Correct.
Mainly, of course, we hope that the tantrums stop by the time about 5 years old.
Correct.
Then we just call them breakdowns, right? I don't know what we call them.
I think we call them breakdowns when we get older. Yes.
Yeah. My husband just glared at me. I don't know why. Anyway, I could glare at him too. I think we could all glare at our spouses when it comes to that.
Right.
Now, meltdowns usually, correct me if I'm wrong on this. So I got a lot of this information from this chart that I had gotten through this program that I went through with Curtis called Project Rex there in South Carolina, which was a great project. They categorize meltdowns as only happening for those who are neurologically and developmentally delayed.
Correct. So, so neurological, you know, that's all those with autism, that's with PDD. And remind you, development delay is just a term for up until their age 3. So that's why they say until development delayed, because they won't know exactly what you're classified as until after age 3.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Just make that clear.
Okay. That's good. That's good to know. Okay. So those that have a neurological condition, and those would be something that is going to have to be diagnosed, I would say, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The next question that we can compare this to is, do we know why they happen?
Correct. So tantrums is with yes.
A big, huge yes.
A big, huge yes. You know why they're doing it. You know what goal they're after, because typically it's goal-oriented.
Yes.
You definitely know. For meltdown, maybe. But it's usually unknown because remember when we talked about it, a lot of times they're either overwhelmed with their senses or they're understimulated with their symptoms. And a lot of times it's hard for them to tell you exactly what it is. So they kind of leave it up to the person who's observing them and say, hey, can you help me out tonight? Because I can't do it. And so instead of communicating, now we're frustrated because now we can't even tell you what's going on. You don't know what's going on in my brain. You can't read it. Guess what? I'm going to go in a full-blown meltdown.
Yeah, and those are never, they're so hard. I know that some of the times that Curtis has gone on his full-on meltdowns have been rough and just draining on me, let alone him, because it takes a lot of energy to go on a full meltdown. It usually takes a lot of energy on tantrums, but a lot of times the little ones then tend to fall asleep. So that's a good thing.
It is.
Sometimes not. It just depends on the child with the tantrum, and tantrums are just, they're different. Meltdowns, ooh, that's, it's just way out there. So yeah, tantrums, you can tell why. Meltdowns, not usually known why they happen. Sometimes after the fact they can talk to you about it, but sometimes they can't. Most of the time they can't. So
right.
So the next thing we can look at is the potential behaviors. What can we see? Tantrums. Well, we've seen all sorts of behaviors with tantrums. A lot of time it's stomping and screaming and crying and shouting and what have you. But it's not there's no loss of physical control or ability to reason.
Correct. So they still can logically reason with you. Camps, when you watch the video on Friday, Camp said it right. I have to bring her back in with her words, and I'm going to paraphrase it for her, but she ultimately said that you need an audience, and when you need an audience, you're in the logical frame of mind. Exactly. A lot of times they'll stop and look at you like, are you still here? Are you like, hey, what's up?
Exactly. Oh yeah, that's for certain. But a meltdown, it just happens. It doesn't matter. I mean, I have seen times where I've taken Curtis out into the car where it's just me and I'm not even paying attention. I put him in the back seat or whatever, and he just goes off, and it doesn't matter whether I'm there or not. And a lot of times you have to be very careful because they do lose physical control of their bodies and they cannot reason with you.
Correct.
And so there are times where you have to be careful and you have to put them in a place that they're going to be safe and not hurt themselves or others.
Right.
Yes, Stacy says the ability to reason is a big one. It sure is, because if they can still talk back and forth with you, it's not a meltdown.
It's not. And a lot of times the meltdowns, you can tell, you can always ask them a simple question. Hey, what's your name? Because a lot of times like, whoa, tantrum be like, well, my name is so-and-so, or I'm not answering you. Whereas a meltdown, they're going to continue to repeat whatever they're in. A lot of times is gibberish. I've heard those who are gibberish, or that you see them on a cycle. Trying to think, they like say the same phrases over and over, maybe a comfort phrase that they're trying to find, or they're saying the same phrase over, like he hurt me, or I'm hurt, and they can't tell you, or I need. It could be broken phrases, or just crying, and they can't even look at you. You could tell they want to be left alone. You can tell, because some meltdowns are silent. They're not the full-blown, those that we tend to see on videos. Sometimes if your child's an introvert, a lot of times they'll go sit quiet, or they'll be a little bit more reserved, or they'll be like, I'm not talking to you, like give you the silent treatment in some ways.
They'll shut down completely.
Yep. So they can be silent.
There's a wide range.
It is a wide range.
Yeah. So the next thing is the duration.
Correct. So duration means the time and length. Just to kind of make that clear, duration is an ABA term.
Yes. So usually tantrums are just, a few minutes, minutes. It usually doesn't go to hours. Meltdowns, they can go for hours.
They can.
They can even, now I've seen, and I think I'm pretty sure I've read some places that they can last for days, in that they will they'll have that, they'll kind of get out of the cycle, and then it just reappears without warning. And that can be, a span. But yeah, it's brutal. As a parent, I know some of the worst meltdowns that Curtis has had. he hasn't been able to control, and he just wants to come to me, and all he does is scream mom, 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 mom multiple times. And it's so hard to do. It's so hard to take and not run to him, I guess is the word. But in the situations, there was demands put on him, and and for some reason it put him over an edge because of things that had happened to him. And so I do remember specifically one time where he was kind of in a meltdown, and he just wanted me, and they wouldn't, and he had to do something before he could come see me. And he finally did it, and then he just sat and just wanted to rock with me. And I mean, he was like, he was still like 9 or 10 years old. Wow. So, yeah. Wow. The other day he crawled up in my lap, and he's 12.
That never goes away.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Okay, the next thing that we have is our intensity, or how strong they can get. Correct. Tantrums. Now we're speaking of tantrums that are classified for little kids. Whatever the breakdowns are that, teenagers or whatever you call the adults that are just going nuts. I don't know what you call that.
I don't either. I don't think there is a term, honestly.
Yeah. Anyway, so with little kids, with younger kids, usually there's no harm unless it's accidental.
Correct. They're the ones who are throwing themselves on the ground from time to time, but or they'll throw things, but it's away from somebody. It's never normally at somebody. Again, that just goes back to them being in a logical state of mind. Because they're very aware of their surroundings. They understand that if I hurt somebody, that's going to do a lot more damaging. Then even at a younger age, you pick up on that. They're like, I'm not going to hurt the one that I love. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to hurt mommy. But I will thrash my body around, or I will scream at the top of my lungs. And so, but there are occasions sometimes where they do lose a little bit of control, and they're like, I'm going to throw something at you though.
Yes.
But those are tantrums. They try not to.
Whereas with the meltdown, you have to make sure that they're not going to be harmed. And property can be damaged. I don't know how many times in autism Facebooks I've read of, the older kids being in a meltdown and punching their, their fist through a wall, things like that.
Desk and you name it.
Yeah.
Jumping what I used to work with a child who you didn't know when it was coming. And it wasn't so much that she was having a tantrum, but she was having a meltdown. She was just frustrated. But let her know she was kind of nonverbal. She would lunge at you, just straight up out of her chair, just lunge. And I was like, oh, brutal is a good word. But I absolutely love her to pieces. I still talk to her from time to time, and she's doing better.
That's good. That's good.
But those were considered meltdowns. Those weren't tantrums. They were considered meltdowns because she wasn't getting something that she needed, and she couldn't quite tell you.
Yeah. There's a difference between a need and a want.
Correct.
And sensory input is not a want. It's a need.
It's a need. That's right.
Especially for our kids on the spectrum and those who have those sensory needs. That's why they're called sensory needs. Okay, our next one is, the question is, can a parent or caregiver intervene? This one's kind of an interesting one. Tantrums, well, yes. Your type of intervention is your choice as a parent. Just don't abuse your child. We're going to say that. There's too much of that going on around this world. So that should be a given, but of course, we're going to say it because it happens. But in a meltdown, we have yes and no.
Correct.
I think we're probably going to have to do another episode where we talk about what the cycles of a meltdown are.
I'm thinking so.
Yeah. So that being said, depends on the cycle. And if they're in the rage cycle, that's nothing's going to happen. Make sure they're safe and stand back.
Right.
That's all you can do.
You can, and for meltdowns, a lot of times they're self-interest. This is where you see
Mhm.
your self-interest behavior,
Mm.
where they hit themselves a good bit.
Yeah.
Tantrums, you can see it in tantrums,
Mhm.
but this goes back to, without getting too technical, this goes back to what has been reinforced.
Yeah.
Um, depending on, so for example, Jess, let's say Curtis or Nikki, let's do Nikki. Let's say
Okay.
Nikki goes into a tantrum and all of a sudden she starts hitting herself and then all you automatically give her what she's want. She now knows that if I hit myself, I'm going to get what I want, which is reinforcing that behavior.
Right.
However, in a meltdown,
Mhm.
that just goes back to I'm frustrated. This is the only thing I know how to do. I've lost
Mhm.
all reasoning, and they tend to be a little bit more self-inflicting.
Mhm.
With that, that's where you wanna keep sharp items away from them. You
Right.
wanna make sure you keep, like, books and chairs and just things
Mhm.
away from them to where they can't, this is where you see the head banging, I guess, is where I'm getting at,
Yeah.
a bit, and it can come out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's for certain. Oh, that's for certain. So yeah, um it's definitely there. So Starlea asks us, so can a child be having a meltdown triggered from wanting something like a phone and being denied?
Oh, she's ahead of us.
Yes, she is.
She's ahead of us. Um,
Yes.
definitely kinda wait on that answer, it's coming.
Yes.
It's coming.
And just a couple of slides. The next thing we want to ask is what can you do after?
Correct.
For tantrums, it's your house, your rules. We're
Mhm.
never going to tell you what to do. Um, for meltdowns, there's a lot of reassurance and love that has to come in there.
Correct. Correct. Camp said the other day, she said a lot of the times they need you. They
Hmm.
need that reassurance. They'll look at you. They need to know that they're safe in a judgmental
Hmm.
area, including our own. And this is where it really takes into cue with your nonverbal language. We
Right.
sigh a lot sometimes, and it has
Hmm.
nothing to do with that. But if a child's in a meltdown and hears that sigh, you're ultimately adding to it, and so you just gotta be
Yes.
as a parent, as hard as it is, or an ABA therapist or a teacher,
Hmm.
just to remain as neutral as possible as they're going through that meltdown because the more neutral you are, or being Switzerland, as I like to say it, um,
That's good.
the quicker they're gonna be out of their meltdown because they
Yeah.
realize, "I'm safe. I
Yeah.
have that reassurance," and you can give that reassurance not just afterwards, you can always give that reassurance to them during,
Hmm.
their meltdown, and I know that we don't have the slide back on, but my biggest pet peeve, and I'll be honest with you, my biggest pet peeve is I see sometimes parents or I've observed teachers, or even ABA therapists, I've observed
Hmm.
it that they punish them for a true meltdown. Um,
No.
I don't punish them.
Mm-mm.
You talk with them afterwards. You talk them like, "Hey, let's remind you of these coping strategies. Let's work through it together. Let's talk about why," because that's where you're gonna really help them connect their logical and their emotions together. It takes work. It takes years, um, to do. So, did I lose you? I think I've lost. It's frozen. I think we're having technical difficulties. Oh no. Oh no. What do I do?
Where there she is. Okay, we can't. Sorry about that. There was a technical glitch there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what the thing that you can't force them to talk about the incident either.
Correct.
Right then, you need to wait until they're ready, and they will come to you, and they will be ready for it because there's a lot of times where they just don't even know what happened,
Mhm.
and they won't
Amazing.
know, and you have to just kind of reassure them and talk it through it. So,
Mhm.
um, and
Yeah.
next we have, I think, our question we can answer. Nope. Oh, one more thing. That's it. How does the individual act following the incident? Tantrums, they might be apologetic.
Well,
Depends on,
it depends on the
yeah.
person, the personality.
Hmm. After meltdowns, they're worn out.
Right.
Sometimes they're afraid,
Mhm.
um, especially if they come back to a point where they have the ability to reason, and they see that, and so that's what will happen. And they need some comfort and they need some help understanding that situation. So just be there for them. And sometimes it just takes letting your 12-year-old curl up in your lap.
I love it.
Okay. So, and now we have our answer to our question: can a tantrum, or how did Star had put it? If can a child be having a meltdown triggered from wanting something like a phone and being denied? It can most certainly start out as a tantrum and go into a meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt. I have seen that happen with my son more than once. One of the one time, I know we were in a store, we'd been shopping for a while. He went past something that he wanted. We told him he couldn't have it. We were trying to try on clothes. They were formal and scratchy, but he saw the item and he just, threw down and started having a fit. I took him into the dressing room to try to help him into the clothes, and that was it. We lost it because then not only he was tired, then he wasn't getting what he wanted, and then he had to then there was a sensory issue in that scratchy clothes that just sent him over the edge. And it was not fun.
Oh no, guys, if you can hear me, we're still having some technology. You're glitching on me pretty bad today.
Yeah, I think it's because my children are downstairs using the internet and they need to get off. Okay, and now we have another question. Star asks, how does a parent avoid that? In that situation where I was with Curtis in that dressing room, I should have just said, no, we're not trying on clothes now because it's not going to happen. But that was so early in the journey that I didn't know too much of what was going on. Now I can kind of see his triggers. I can see that look, the frustration. And I know that when he's frustrated, I can just come to him and say, okay, hey, let's step back for a little bit. Let's take a deep breath. And that's when I know to try to help with those coping mechanisms, to remind him of them so he doesn't go into that meltdown in the first place or start tantruming in the first place. And a lot of the times, one of the things that we used to do, a mistake that we had made, was we wouldn't let him, if we had and this was something that's kind of newer, I think, in ABA. I guess one of the newer things that they've seen, that sometimes in a situation, if there's demands put on them and they want to take off because they're getting overwhelmed, it's better to let them have that escape behavior so that they can go calm down and process before they come back down.
Right. And then to kind of go on to that, I know that it's newer in ABA. A lot of times just saying no frustrates a kid. And so kind of telling them like how a parent can avoid that is, hey, we're not getting it this time. Let's work for something, or give them a definite time frame. Helps out a lot, because if they do go into a meltdown, you can say, hey, remember. And you can give them that reassurance that way, because now they're realizing that it's not their behavior so much that they can't get it. It's more that I don't understand it. But just giving them that definite no, instead of just no, that's so abstract, but given that definite time frame, not this time, maybe next time, or hey, in a couple minutes, let's put a timer on. We can go back to it after we do this, give them that, which kind of helps out, because then the kid's like, oh, okay, I got this. Like, we got this, I think we lost you again.
We're here in just a second. Okay, we're here. We're here. I can't see it on my screen, but I can see it up there. Sorry about that. So Stacy had said she had learned to say something positive and happy after she had said something negative that you won't be happy with, and that has helped. And yeah, that's a great tip, Stacy.
That's a great tip.
I know I almost had a meltdown on my hands this afternoon because I wasn't going downstairs fast enough to watch a video that I promised I would watch. So. Just the slightest thing can send them off. Well, what we want to ask you to do, and I know we didn't really pop up that many questions or things, but we're so happy that you guys were commenting and we're with us here tonight. If you have had any knowledge, if something has helped you tonight, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and make sure that you turn that bell on so you can see more videos from us. We will have videos this Wednesday and Friday again. We also are on various social media platforms, aren't we, Kelsey?
We are. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at My Spectrum Life, and you can also find us at Twitter at My Spectrum Life with the number 1. And then, as always, you can email us at info@myspectrumlife.com.
And always email us with any of the questions that you might have, topics you want us to talk about. We are excited that next week we are going to have a special guest with us talking more about meltdowns. It's going to be great. So we hope that you'll be here with us. And as always, we know that with a lot of faith, love, and a whole lot of fidget toys, we can make it. Thanks, everyone.